Okay, I want to talk about something that is unfortunately going to become a trend, which is people finding ways to get a pseudo real, I guess I would call, exemption for either vaccination or mask wearing. Okay, as we see more and more requirements put in place, even if the requirements are what we would call like a soft requirement, where it's like, you got to get vaccinated or you can test weekly. So you could just test weekly. As we are seeing more and more schools, including in the state of Florida, say, no, no, no to Ron DeSantis. Even if you don't want masks in schools, we, the school board, are putting masks on these kids because they're unvaccinated and we need to do it. It just makes sense. You're going to see more and more shady mechanisms for people to try to get themselves or their kids out of wearing a mask or getting a vaccine. There is a chiropractor offering mask medical exemption notes in Florida. Business Insider has a report. A Florida chiropractor issued over 500 mask exemptions for students in Sarasota County. A chiropractor in Florida. Okay, as I said, district spokesman Craig Meniglia told the Herald Tribune a third of all medical exemptions in the district were signed by chiropractor Dan Busch at Twin Palms Chiropractic. One guy. The county started imposing mask mandates on students on Monday, defying Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' executive order banning mask mandates. That's last Monday. This all happened over the last week. After rumors started circulating that Busch was giving out pre-signed medical exception forms, Sarasota County School Superintendent Brennan Asplin issued an updated mask exemption form on Tuesday. Mask exemptions can now only be issued by licensed medical doctors, osteopathic physicians, or advanced registered nurse practitioners. Busch had denied accusations that he was giving out pre-signed forms. I myself will tell you I have not given exemptions to any parents I have not met with. That's different. He also says, I'm not an anti-mask person or an anti-vax person, but I'm pro-freedom, pro-choice. Sarasota is one of 10 school districts in Florida going ahead with mask mandates against the governor's order. 2 school districts have had funding withheld, but are still continuing with the mandate. Of course, Florida is seeing a spike in COVID among children. Cases among children under 12 up 30% the week ending August 26th. Cases among those 12 to 19 up 26%. So check this out. This is video from an event in Florida where people are lining up in order to get exceptions from this guy. People just all lined up, working hard to prevent their kids from having to wear a mask. This was an event held by this guy. These are pictures of armed guards at the event. Let me see if I can put it. Now, typically, you wouldn't need armed guards with what I guess are bulletproof vests, or I don't know if you call it a flak jacket. It's looking even a little small, and long guns in camo. I mean, like typically you don't need that when you're doing something medical in this way. People saying, how could this possibly be legal? And one of the things that keeps coming up is this promo. This event took place yesterday. Mask exemption evaluation event. So that's important, right? You got to call it an evaluation event. Sunday, September 12 at noon, 826 South Moon Road in Venice. This was yesterday. And it says parent, guardian, and student required to attend. So they have to be there. Medical records helpful, but not mandatory. So you can just show up and be like, my kid struggles to breathe with the mask or whatever. And then I guess the good chiropractor would say, ma'am or sir, your kid qualifies for this thing. Now, I wonder if customers have to sign, patient customers. I wonder if the patients of this chiropractor have to sign a disclaimer so that if the maskless relative or someone that gets the virus from them dies, they can't then go and sue this chiropractor. Is that something that they have to sign? And imagine what is going on in your head where, never mind saying, I think I'm going to find a mask opt-out for my kid. I think I'm going to go and stand in line for maybe hours to get a mask opt out for my kid. Like, what is going on in people's lives? What is going on in people's heads that is something that they would go and that they would do? This sort of reminds me, in the early days of medical marijuana, and as a reminder, I believe it should be recreationally legal and regulated and all this stuff. In the early days of medical marijuana, there were sort of what you would call like pro-pot doctors, where you could just go, and there have been some investigations on this about how sort of silly it was. You go in and you say, I need a medical marijuana card because my back hurts. And this would be a doctor you had never seen before, and they would have you do a couple movements, and they would say, and tell me where it hurts. And then they would just kind of like generically say, yeah, here's a prescription for your marijuana, and you get a card, and then you go. And it was like sort of understood, you're paying a couple $100 for the consult, and it's basically just like a rubber stamp type thing. This seems like the same thing. The difference being someone just going and getting medical marijuana when maybe they should really only be getting recreational hurts no one. And it actually potentially keeps someone out of dealings with law enforcement for something that shouldn't be a law enforcement issue altogether. All these parents going and opting out their kids from masks actually has a societal effect and can actually lead to, we see more kids than at any point in the pandemic in the ICU and in the hospital for COVID, but also then they bring it home to other people. It's a mess and it has a huge societal effect. But the consult strikes me as some of what was going on early with the absurdity of the medical only marijuana, which is a very different thing. It's different medically and it's different societally as well. This is not boding particularly well for us exiting the pandemic anytime soon.